So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing my experiences teaching English in Miami. I know I have a lot of subscribers who came to my channel through my teaching English videos, and I definitely have been meaning to make more videos on this, teaching videos. So if you're one of those people, you might find this video interesting. So let's get into the video. So hi, I'm Lindsay, and I make videos about living in South Florida, career topics, and just life in general. So if you're interested, definitely subscribe. Browse around my channel, get a feel for my content, and let's get into today's video. So why teach English in Miami? That's a question that you might be asking. I ended up coming to Miami because after college, I went to college in Nashville. After college, I moved to Spain to teach English for 2 years. After that, I came back to the States. I did a master's program, and I wanted to go abroad again after I did my master's. But I wasn't exactly sure if I wanted to go like all the way to Europe again or some other place. But I had family in South Florida, and I knew that South Florida had a lot of Spanish speakers and language schools. And I thought, okay, there could be an opportunity to teach English in Miami, and I would have a place to live. So it just kind of worked out that way. So in January of 2010, 11 years ago, I moved to the Miami area, actually to Hollywood, which is a suburb of Fort Lauderdale, but it's kind of close to North Miami, just 10 minutes from North Miami. And I spent a lot of time in Miami, and I worked in Miami, so that's why I just say Miami in general to include the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area. So I'll just give a preface. In this video, I'm going to talk about the 4 different places that I've worked here in South Florida. 2 were in Miami and 2 were in Fort Lauderdale. So I'll just kind of give a little quick summary of what each of those places were like, and at the end of the video I'll give my overall perspective on teaching English in Miami. So my first job was at Kaplan International in Coral Gables, and Kaplan is a branch of the Kaplan Test Prep Company, but they have like Kaplan like English Academy or English centers, and so they have one in Miami in Coral Gables, which is close to the University of Miami. It's a super nice area. I really like it. It was probably a 45-minute to an hour drive from where I lived. At the time, it didn't really bother me because I had just moved to Miami. I was young and I had tons of energy, and I was really excited about it. They offered me a part-time job with about 20 hours a week at a rate of $19 per hour. And I was super psyched about it. I was really excited. And to be honest, I really enjoyed it. I really liked it there. I felt like the curriculum was good, it was well organized, the students were great, and I really felt like I really wanted to stay there. However, I ended up leaving after about 3 or 4 months because I needed to return to Nashville to finish a portion of my master's program. So I ended up quitting, I guess, 3 or 4 months in, and to be honest, I was really sad about it. But it was a really far drive, and I didn't miss that for sure. But I really enjoyed my time at Kaplan. So the second school that I worked at was called TLA, or the Language Academy, and it was actually in Fort Lauderdale. And this was in 2013 is when I went back to working at academies. And I just found it with a Google search, just like Kaplan. And I didn't go back to Kaplan, mostly because it was a really far drive and I wanted something closer, and Fort Lauderdale is really only like 10-15 minutes from my house. So I said, hey, you know, there's some schools there. I'm just going to try out Fort Lauderdale. So I went to interview at the Language Academy, and I was really excited about it because it was actually in a really nice office building in the financial district of Fort Lauderdale, right downtown, a really nice area. And I felt like, you know, hey, I'm like someone special or whatever. So I was excited about it. But once I had the interview with the director, she was like an older lady. She seemed really sarcastic. Honestly, she was not that friendly. Like, she was someone who I felt like everyone was afraid of or scared of. And it just didn't seem like they had a curriculum at all. It was kind of like, just do whatever you want to. I mean, she said they had books, but they didn't really use them unless whatever the students wanted them to. So that was like kind of one red flag. And the classes were long. They were like 4 hours a day. And the students are just sitting there, like, of course, like expecting you to teach them. And every day you had to come up with 4 hours of material on your own. And I just was like, I mean, I like doing conversational activities, but students get really bored after like 20 minutes of something. And it was just a lot of work to create all this content and curriculum on my own. So I was really like not happy with this position and the school, and I felt like almost like the students were getting cheated because the teachers weren't really following any curriculum that I could see. And I observed a lot of teachers before I started. I just felt like they were winging it. I don't remember how much I got paid there. I would say it's probably between 18 and 20. I don't remember how much it was. But one of the students, he told me about another school across the street called Embassy, and he's like, oh, it's a really good school, you should check it out, I like it better than this one. But I think he had already paid like, you know, for a certain amount of months, so he was just gonna stay at that school. But of course I went and interviewed at the other school across the street. So I was only at the language academy for maybe like a month. So I went across the street into another nice building and I interviewed for another school called Embassy, which was my third language school. And they were starting their summer program, and that was going through like June and July and August. So I applied and they hired me, and it was about 3 or 4 hours a day as well. And sometimes I would sub in the afternoon as well. So that would be an extra hour and a half. And that was a pay rate of 18 an hour, which I was kind of bummed that was 18. But I really liked the location and the school. It had parking. Actually, Kaplan, the Language Academy, and Embassy all had parkings, like paid parking, which is kind of a big deal because a lot of places I've worked in Florida, like you don't have like a good parking situation. Like sometimes you have to walk far, or it's just not convenient a lot of times, the parking. But at all those schools I had paid parking in a garage, so that was a really nice benefit. But I really liked Embassy. I don't think Embassy is in business anymore. I think they got bought out by another school. But I liked it. It was easy. It felt like kind of like Kaplan. Maybe not as like well known as Kaplan, but it was a really nice place to work, and I enjoyed like the teachers I work with, and the students. I made a lot of friends with students, which I know you're not obviously supposed to be like besties with the students, but just, you know, we reconnected after they had gone back home. Most of them just came for like 4 to 6 weeks for the summer. So as much as I liked Embassy, after 2 or 3 months, like the summer program was over and the numbers went down a lot, so they didn't really need teachers, so I just became like an occasional sub. So I started to look for another school. So the fourth school that I ended up working for was called EC in Miami, and it stands for English Center, I'm pretty sure. I'm not exactly sure, but I think it is. EC. It's an English school based in Malta in Europe, and that's where like the headquarters is. And actually, now I think about it, EC, I found out, bought Embassy. But anyway, so I went to EC, and out of all of them, it paid the most. I think it paid 20 or 22 an hour. But they did require a little bit more work. The hours were the same, mostly 3 to 4 hours a day, occasionally some afternoon work. But the lesson planning for EC was a lot more extensive than the other ones. Well, they actually required you to do this like lesson plan worksheet and turn it in at the beginning of each week, which the other schools never required you to turn in your lesson plans or anything like that, that I remember. But even though they required you to do them, they also paid you $10 an hour to lesson plan each week at your house, like at home. So I thought that was really good. And later I found out that both Embassy and Kaplan were sued, like a class action lawsuit, for not paying their teachers for planning time. So I guess that EC, you know, I think that was before they bought Embassy, EC, before they bought Embassy. But obviously, I guess EC then was paying their teachers to plan. But like EC gave you this planning worksheet, and they kind of asked like a lot of, why are you teaching this? So what are your methodologies? And like explaining why you're teaching the way you're teaching and what you're teaching. I thought the lesson planning template was a little extensive, just my opinion. But that's probably the only con, because otherwise EC was super organized, really, I think like really a good school. In fact, some celebrities would go there. After I had left, probably a month later, J Balvin, who's like a popular Latin singer, he came to study English at EC in Miami. I wasn't there, but I had some of my students that were hanging out with him or whatever. I noticed like a lot of most of the students that I noticed in the South Florida schools were either from Switzerland, Brazil, Venezuela, Saudi Arabia. Those were probably like the most popular countries that people came to Miami to study from. One of the cons though at EC was that they didn't have a parking garage. They had a parking garage in the building, but it was like $5 an hour and they wouldn't pay us to park there. So you had to get to work really early and park like on the streets in South Beach. And sometimes you got a parking spot and sometimes you had to like walk 15 minutes. That was like one of the biggest downsides of working there. And ultimately, not the main reason I left, probably the main reason I left was because I ended up like driving an hour, hour and a half sometimes, and it was just too much. And so I ended up staying there probably 3 months as well. I really enjoyed like parking and like walking on Lincoln Road, which is a really popular road in South Beach for like tourists. It's a pedestrian street. I love walking there every morning at like 8 a.m. like with the sun coming up. It was just like really refreshing after my hour drive. But I just needed a closer to my house job, and it took a little while for me to realize like a lot of these locations were further than I wanted to drive every morning. And I was working part-time, so I felt like it really wasn't worth it for me. I would have really loved to live in South Beach, but I wasn't making enough money at that place to justify like living there. So I didn't. But I think the biggest downside is these jobs are usually part-time, somewhere like 20, 25 hours a week, between like 18 and 22 an hour. And the students are usually pretty good, like they really want to learn, but it's just not a long-term career plan for most people because there's really not much room for growth. Most schools have between 10 and 15 teachers, and maybe only one of those teachers or 2 of those teachers is full-time. So the likelihood of becoming full-time could take a while, but in that meantime, you're more likely to find a full-time job outside of an academy. I think it's a good job, like if you're new to the area and just want to like start making money and just start working. It's a good first job. Yeah, like I said, you probably eventually after 6 months to a year or sooner want to find a full-time job to sustain yourself in Miami, but you meet a lot of people and it's definitely a fun job. I don't see myself going back to work at academies just because I want a full-time job and I want to earn more money. And I need to live more independently. But I think overall, like, it's a fun experience. So let me know down in the comments, are you thinking about working at an academy in Miami, or do you have any other questions about teaching in Miami? In another video, I will talk about my experience teaching at a private school in Miami full-time and how that went. So definitely subscribe so you don't miss out on that one. And definitely also check out the rest of the other videos I have on my channel. Check out my description. I also have a new website if you're curious. Thank you again so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in my future videos.